Hey y'all, welcome to Paige's Perspective, where I help you find your inner strength to cope with life. Do you ever feel like you're just an anxious ball? You feel as though you just can't get your thoughts or emotions in check? Everything seems to make you anxious? You know, anxiety is a part of life. It's a normal part of it, but we aren't meant to have it at all times. It's supposed to come and go depending on what's going on within our lives. I had some high anxiety as a child, and then again as a young adult, and then again at 30. Like, it was an up and down roller coaster ride within my early years. My first panic attack was around 20 years old, and I went to the doctor. I became medicated, and I didn't do any work to actually shift my thought processes on life. So the medication was it was a bandaid for me. No one told me to necessarily get mental help. It was more about go to the doctor and get help. So what did they do? They gave me the meds and they sent me on my way, which meds are necessary along shifting our thought patterns. Like when I was on medication, it was about shifting my thought patterns to get off of it. It wasn't until 30 did I actually understand that it was a me problem that I had to address. Something had to change within me. I was tired of being miserable, helpless, no good to anyone, plus feeling anxious about irrational things had me feeling absolutely crazy. I didn't have someone to save me at this point. Matt was not understanding of my anxiety at all, and I don't blame him for that. He didn't understand, and honestly, that probably helped me get my shit together because he didn't coddle me. He told me to get help because my anxiety was impacting him and the kids. So this episode is going to touch a bit on irrational anxiety and how to manage it. Irrational anxiety is when fear or worry take over in situations that don't actually pose a real threat, or when the level of anxiety is way out of proportion to the situation. It's anxiety that defies logic but feels entirely real in the moment. It's a powerful emotion, but damn it, it's possible to shift our mindset. So, what are some typical examples of irrational anxiety? Let's say you have a fear of leaving your house. You think that if I leave the house, something bad will happen. The reality is there's no actual danger, but anxiety is going to convince you that the safest option is to avoid leaving the house altogether. Another example is if I don't say something perfectly, people will think I'm stupid. Well, the reality is that most people aren't analyzing your words as harshly as you are. And if they are, honestly, F them, who cares? But anxiety is going to make you feel like every conversation is a high stakes test. Another example is that person looked at me funny. They must hate me. The reality is maybe they were lost in thought, or maybe they had a headache, or they weren't even thinking about you at all. But a lot of the times our anxiety turns this neutral glance into a personal attack. Another example is if I don't triple check the stove, the house is going to burn down. The reality is if the stove was off in the first time or in the first place, it's still off. Another example is I have a weird pain in my side. It's probably something seriously wrong with me. Reality is it could be gas, a pulled muscle, or something harmless. But anxiety is going to jump straight to the worst possible scenario. If you feel like you need to go to the doctor, go to the doctor for a peace of mind. Now, what if you feel overwhelmed over minor inconveniences? Let's say you hit a red light when you're already running late. Your reaction is, why does this always happen to me? The universe is against me. The reality is traffic lights aren't out to get you. This is just welcome to life. This is part of it. It's going to happen. We have to learn to pivot. So what about some scenarios as a parent? A lot of parents have some anxiety, and I get it. I've been there, done that with some of my parenting styles, but I've had to really address these and get through them, or some of them, not all of the ones that I'm going to give you. But if I let them play outside, they'll get kidnapped. A lot of us moms have this mentality. We're afraid to let our kids go do things because we're like, oh no, they're going to get kidnapped. But the reality is stranger abductions are incredibly rare, but our anxiety is going to convince us that every time our kid is out of sight, that danger is just around the corner. We've got to let them live. And then another one is, what if your kid doesn't make the team? You think that their self-esteem is going to be ruined. The reality is rejection is a part of life. Learning to handle disappointment builds resilience. But anxiety makes you want to shield them from that pain or from any pain. Another one is if they're unhappy, I must be doing something wrong. The reality is it's impossible for kids to be happy all the time. Anxiety is going to trick us into believing that every bad mood is a sign of a deeper failure, and it goes really extreme. It goes to the extreme. What if you think that if your kids don't have the perfect childhood, then they're going to grow up traumatized? The reality is that no one has a perfect childhood. We all have trauma, honestly. But kids need love, security, and guidance, not perfection. This anxiety can make us hyper-focus on every little thing instead of the big picture. Irrational parenting anxiety comes from a good place. We love our kids and we want to protect them. But when that anxiety controls the decision making, it can make parenting exhausting as hell. And it can even hold our kids back from healthy independence. They need to learn to be independent, and we need to let go of outcomes that may not happen. So how do we get through this? How do we manage our irrational anxiety? Well, first, you got to be willing to change your thought process. If you're stuck in the mentality of this is just who I am, I'll always be anxious, I don't know what to do, you're not willing to change. Hard truths. If you are miserable, feeling anxious over things that are out of your control, it's time to get real with yourself and do some hard but necessary work. It takes effort. No one will save you. You have to save yourself, which is pretty badass because that is something you have control over. Yourself. Waiting for someone to save you or waiting for the world to change or waiting for the feel-good feelings to come along will only keep you stuck longer and will make it worse over time. When I was miserable, I became obsessed with shifting my thoughts and behavior. I needed to change in order to save my life so I could not only be there for me, but for my kids. I didn't want to be a neurotic mom or wife. I knew my behavior and anxiety weren't serving me anymore or anyone else. So I had to do whatever it took to shift my thoughts. And it served me well. I haven't had a panic attack in almost 8 years. And my thoughts dictate my actions instead of my emotions dictating me. And these are my healthier thoughts, the ones that I've had to shift. Irrational anxiety will not protect you. It just won't. You think it will because it's how you feel, but it's not based on facts. This is where cultivating our emotions becomes huge. Logic alone didn't work. If logic alone worked, none of us would have issues with regulating our emotions. When Matt tried to use logic on me when I was not functional, it didn't work. It felt dismissive, which made it worse because I felt like something was wrong with me since I couldn't logically get my shit together. But in order to get the logical side of the brain to function properly, we need to be calm first. And in order to do that, we need to shift our thoughts to a safer place. So let's say you have massive anxiety about driving into the city by yourself. Yes, this is random. We're going to talk about driving. It's just a thing. All right. Hang with me. Tell yourself, I feel you. I know it's scary, but we can get through this. We are stronger than we think. Take some breaths, calm yourself down by thinking of being calm, not thinking about what could go wrong. That feeds the anxiety. You may be putting a million scenarios in your head, but that's not reality. Shift your thoughts to calm and collected. You know what calm feels like because if you didn't, you wouldn't know what anxiety or stress feels like. Take yourself into that place in your mind. This takes effort. I get it. But would you rather be stuck in the discomfort of massive anxiety forever or do the hard thing that actually benefits you more over time? Once you're calm, your logic brain can come into play easier and we have more clarity when we're calm. Do some box breathing. Not sure what that is? Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. Repeat until you feel a shift. Why this works is because it slows down your heart rate. It signals to your brain that there's no real danger, and it creates space for the rational thinking. Our breathing is extremely important with how we react to things. Ask yourself this. What exactly am I afraid of? Are you afraid of getting lost? Are you afraid of missing an exit? Are you afraid of heavy traffic? Are you afraid of breaking down? Are you afraid of getting in an accident? Are you afraid of feeling overwhelmed and panicking? Then ask yourself, how realistic is this fear? Have I handled mistakes before? Yeah. Do people drive into the city every day without disaster? Yeah. Is there actual danger, or is my brain exaggerating risk? By breaking it down, you recognize that the fear isn't about driving itself. It's about feeling out of control or unprepared. Basically, that's how anxiety is. It's about feeling out of control. But we have more control than you think. And also, we don't have any control over the outcomes, but we have the control over how we handle ourselves. That's the important takeaway there. Challenge the worst case scenarios. Anxiety makes you believe something terrible will happen. Challenge it with logic. The fear is if I miss an exit, I'll be stuck in panic. Reality is GPS is going to reroute me. I can pull over and regroup if needed. If your GPS doesn't work, stop at a gas station and ask somebody. It's that simple. The fear, what if my car breaks down? Reality, I have a phone, roadside assistance. I'm an adult and can figure it out. What if you have the fear of I'll get overwhelmed and freeze? Reality, I can take deep breaths. I can pull over. I can slow down. I have options. We give our emotions too much power sometimes. Take the power away from the emotions. Anxiety says, I can't handle this. You say, I've handled a lot harder things. This is just a drive. Anxiety says, what if I panic? You say, then I'll slow down, breathe, and keep going. Anxiety says, I can't do this. You say, the only way to prove that wrong is to do it. Prove it wrong. The goal isn't to have zero anxiety either. The goal is to trust yourself to handle it. The more you face the fear, the more confidence you build, and eventually driving into the city will feel normal instead of terrifying. You can use this strategy with anything that makes you feel super anxious. Flying, public speaking, having hard conversations, saying no to someone. Just getting out of your comfort zone may bring on some irrational anxiety. Challenge your thoughts. Understand that your feelings aren't necessarily facts. Sure, they have a place. We are human, we are not robots, but learning to balance logic and emotions is the goal. Instead of feeling I shouldn't be feeling this way, tell yourself I feel anxious about this and that's okay, but I don't have to let it control me. Ask yourself, is the emotion helpful right now? Some emotions serve a purpose, like fear, making you cautious in a dangerous situation. But irrational anxiety, it just makes you panic. You got to ask, is this fear protecting me or is it holding me back? If it's protecting you, listen and adjust accordingly. If it's holding you back, recognize that and shift into logic. So here's an example. Maybe you have a fear of speeding in the rain because you know what can happen if you speed in the rain. This is rational because it helps you become cautious. Fear of driving into a city because something bad might happen is irrational because it's based on emotion, not facts. Use the both and thinking, not either or thinking. So instead of forcing logic or emotions to win, use both. The either or thinking is I can either be completely logical or I have to feed into my anxiety. Use both and thinking. I feel anxious and I can still think through this rationally. Here's an example. I feel nervous about driving in the city and I know I can handle it by planning my route and taking deep breaths and understanding that if something happens out of my control, that's life. I will be prepared. This way you honor your emotions without letting them dictate your life. And round yourself in facts, not just feelings. Emotions feel real, but they aren't always true. Anxiety says this will be a disaster. Logic says, what proof do I have of that? Balance is, I feel nervous, but realistically, I've handled situations like this before. I've got this. Use logic to make a plan. Map the route, give yourself extra time, be prepared to pull over if you have to, take some breathing exercises, then act despite of the anxiety. The more you do this, the more confidence you're going to build until your emotions start aligning with reality. When we change our thoughts, eventually, your brain has been rewired to know how to manage anxiety better. Emotions and logic aren't enemies. They're meant to work together. First, you got to calm the emotion, do those breathing exercises, change your thoughts, then you engage logic. And then you take action despite fear. With practice, rational thinking becomes the default, not anxiety. This is a practice to help you manage your emotions in a positive way that will benefit you in the future. I did a lot of breathing, a lot of grounding exercises. I practiced present moment awareness and logic to get to where I am today. I no longer overkill on planning or prepping for things that would typically give me anxiety because I've trained my brain to learn how to cope and work through these things. I'm at a point where I'm confident in being able to handle everyday life instead of allowing my emotions to dictate my life. If we can shift our thoughts, we can shift our life. That's all I have for this week. Until next time, I'm Paige. Bye.